There are a lot of good games out there. So many that I and most of you will never have enough time to play all the games that you want to play. Dealing with the backlog is a constant topic of discussion, but at some point when you're playing a game, no matter how good it is, there will come a time where you start looking past the game you're playing towards the next game you want to play. I think even some of my favorite games of all time have these moments. Because no matter what, at some point, the game needs to tell you that it's about to end. And once it does that, it better end quick. Because I'm done. And I want to talk about it. You know what will never end? Me making YouTube videos. So you might as well like, leave a comment, subscribe, and become a member. This is such an interesting dilemma to me because usually you would think if it's bad, you want it to end, but I find that almost every game, at some point, I am just done with it and trying to finish it as fast as possible. And when I was thinking about it, I came up with essentially 3 major categories of game endings, and I've ranked them by order of least annoying to most annoying. We'll get the minor stuff out of the way, and then we're going to get the serious gripes coming in, so make sure you watch to the end of the video. Did I say like and subscribe yet? YouTube stuff. Do the YouTube stuff. This is not genuine content. It's just a cry for attention. Like the video. So the first thing I want to talk about are overlong final bosses or dungeons. And this happens, I think, in every single RPG game, but others as well. Essentially, a cutscene will happen, setting up the final battle. Let's take the bad guy down. But of course we can't just go straight to the bad guy because that would be anticlimactic for some reason, and instead we have to go on an adventure to get to the bad guy. And usually these adventures are overlong, tedious, and never let you finish the game. To me, the biggest problem I have with this particular kind of game ending is the inability to finish the game in a single play session. Now, if you have all the time in the world, maybe this isn't as big of a deal, but when the point of no return hits and you know in the back of your head that you probably still have 2 to 4 more hours of gameplay ahead of you, it almost makes it feel overwhelming to finish the game because you want to play the game, but you also don't want to have to stop playing in the middle of this sort of final run. And so you need to have, again, potentially a 2 to 4 hour window to sit down and actually finish the game. Usually, too, I find that it always takes longer than you think it's going to. Some games are horrifically bad. I think the worst offender is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, whose point of no return encapsulates 2 chapters of the game's story and was almost like 6 or 7 hours of gameplay. I think the Persona games and most recently Metaphor are also very guilty of this. These are games that have you exploring dungeons throughout the course of the game, and then for some reason, the final dungeon is 2 or 3 times the size of all the other dungeons you've gone through, filled with tedious enemies that take a while to bring down, a lot of sub-bosses that are also tedious. And this all leads up to a final boss fight that usually has 2 or 3 phases, and the whole fight itself will probably take you 30 to 40 minutes. On top of that, the fight is probably only lethal to your party for the last 10 or so minutes of the battle. So if you die, you then get kicked back to the beginning of a 40-minute fight, where again about 30 of those minutes you know are accounted for and you're going to breeze through. Then there's games that decide to spike the difficulty for no reason whatsoever, only on the final boss of the game. Again, I think Metaphor did this to some degree. You can fight through the whole game. I never felt underleveled. I felt like I was in control, even in that final dungeon, all the way up until the final boss. And then it felt like the final boss was just handing it to me. And this is the most defeating of all to me, because if the game doesn't tell me before this point that, hey, maybe you're a little underleveled or maybe you need to get a little stronger, I don't want to get a little stronger when I know I only have 1 battle left. There are a handful of games where I have just watched the final cutscene on YouTube because it's not worth the time to me. I don't want to spend the time. I know I could do it. It's not anything where I'm incapable. I just don't want to spend another hour or 2 grinding around to level my guy up and have an easier time with this final boss. RPGs, especially like JRPGs, turn-based games, the gameplay is not so rewarding that it feels good to go grind and then just be able to do more damage, or figure out, which class you haven't leveled yet but is actually the secret OP class in the game because it gives you all these abilities. I'm just not going to do it. Final Fantasy VIII is another great example of this. Honestly, it's even worse because of how they do enemy scaling, and you always essentially need to grind at the end because you can finally get Leon out of your party. Because the game scales all enemies to him, he's always like over-leveled compared to the rest of your party even, just making it impossible. Which is actually why I appreciated the remaster so much, because it just lets you go invincible, and you could just grind down the final boss without grinding, saves a couple hours, and lets you actually just finish the game. Honestly though, these really don't bother me too much. It's essentially a staple of the genre. You know what you're getting into, so even though you know the game is ending, there is also that part of you that knows that it's not ending for a little bit. You know kind of what you're getting into, and so that does help keep you a little more engaged than the next two things I want to talk about. So the next issue I have is this like deluge of side quests that are given to you right when you also get the final mission of the game. It is such a weird dichotomy to me when these open world games, or at least games with optional content, don't space out the optional content well throughout the main narrative of the game. I think open world games in general will always have this problem to some extent, because it's that trade-off of you want a narrative that's pressing, but also need to allow the player to go do whatever they want. So even though it is pressing, they might just never do the main quest. But to intentionally backload a lot of your side content is so insane to me, because the natural urge is to just ignore it all. The most recent example of this that comes to mind is Final Fantasy XVI. When you do get the final mission given to you, it literally does come along with like 15 side quests, and the worst part is these are some of the better side quests in the game. So if you want to experience some of the better content that this game had to offer, you have to put the actual game on hold at the point where you probably most want to play the main story. The narrative is gearing up for it. You're working towards this final battle. Everybody's ready to go. Let's do it. Oh, but actually here's 15 things to do instead. Absolutely kills the momentum of the narrative and just makes me frustrated. So now I feel like I have to play this side content, but I just want to finish the game. Why did you do this to me? You essentially put a whole final act of the game in front of the actual ending, but it's irrelevant stuff. And honestly, the only thing worse than that is my major complaint, which is actually having an entire hidden act of your story behind the final boss. I never would have guessed that a Mario game would infuriate me because of this, but that is actually what caused me to want to make this video in the first place. Mario and Luigi Brothership, which at this point came out almost a year ago, which shows you how on top of things I am as far as making videos go, has like a 40-hour campaign. And at the end of that 40 hours campaign, when you go to fight the final boss, it's revealed that actually that's not the final boss. There's a secret final boss, but now that secret final boss is going to do this thing where now you have to re-explore the entire game and go collect this stuff so that you can then power up to fight the final boss. 10 more hours of gameplay hidden behind what they present as the final boss, in a game that really barely could handle its 40-hour runtime. Jamming content in just to have more content without regards to how the player may be feeling, how ragged out and stretched thin your experience may be, is insane to me. And this game really sent me over the edge. I actually was mostly enjoying Mario and Luigi Brothership. I know a lot of people came down hard on it. I didn't come down that hard on it. But the way they handled that ending really soured my opinion of the whole game and did lower it from maybe a great game down to a good game. While I'm sure there's more that I'm just not thinking of, the other games that really stick out that do this are the Tales games. I've only played Tales of Vesperia and Tales of Arise, but in both of those games, they do this exact same thing. Build up towards the big bad, and then, oh, actually, here's the real bad guy. Play the game for 15 more hours. In Vesperia, that was a bridge too far. I actually gave the game up right then and there. I have not picked it up, and I never planned to pick it up. Whereas Arise was good enough and kept me going enough that I did see it through, but it's not even fun. Once you've decided the game is over, once the game tells you that it's about to end, it's done. Your brain just moves on, and any time you spend in that game from then on actually is negative time as far as I'm concerned. No matter how good the game is, no matter how much you like it, as soon as you've sort of checked out and are looking past the game you're playing, that game time is negative. It's a negative experience and can only drag you down. I actually think this happened to me this year with Expedition 33. The game started really strong and dragged on too long. I went from absolutely loving that game to really thinking it was just pretty average by the end. Also because of some of the story decisions and narrative decisions that they made, but it really did have a negative experience. It's a fine balance for sure. I don't know what the answer is, because I also think it would suck if you don't see the ending coming and then the game is just suddenly over. I do think the game does have to prepare you for the final battle, but they need to do it in a way that's effective, because I think they really do risk turning off a lot of gamers by doing that with their stories. Not every game needs to be an endless experience. I think a lot of games would actually benefit from being shorter, more focused experiences. I don't know if it's this discussion that we have of hours to dollars has to be high or what. You can only buy so many games, so you want to buy a game that's going to last forever. I don't know, but personally, I would rather still be enjoying the game and kind of not want it to end. You want to be right on that line of, I'm ready for this to end. And too many games go the other way. Genuinely the only game I can think of where I had the opposite experience, the experience of, I'm not done with this game, I wish I could keep playing, but it is time to move on, was Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I talked about it in my review. I absolutely adored that game. And even at 85 or 90 hours, I wasn't really ready to be done, but I had done all the stuff I really wanted to do in that game. But really though, those are the exceptions that prove the rule. And while it may be this grind set mentality of trying to get through all the games of the backlog, whatever the cause is, the reality is, I think this phenomena does exist, and I think it exists for more people than just me. But what do you think? Do you play a lot of games that you wished were longer? Let me know in the comments down below. Other games that I missed in some of these categories that have frustratingly long endings when you just want to be done with it? I'd love to hear it. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the like button. Consider subscribing to the channel or becoming a member, and I will see you all with the next video.